Hello?
Okay. Sorry about that.
You all set?
Yeah, I think so.
You think so? All right. Well,
All
let's
right.
get
You
it
ready for one
on.
of the newbiest ones you've done in at least a little while?
Oh yeah, it's got to be a new one. All fresh.
Not completely fresh, but compared to the ones I've seen you do, I'm a bit earlier in things than anyone else.
Okay. Well, then we might have some different type content and some different questions than other people, which is a good thing, I guess, right? Keep the diversity going.
True, yeah.
So you came back recently. You switched over from non-reboot. What's the deal?
Um, so at least like I've played this game when I was a kid, and, like in like pre Big Bang and all that, but
Mm-hmm.
as far as like reboot and stuff, I pretty much I think like I had an account for a while, but I didn't really have anything to show for it until Destiny when I burned fire poison wizard.
Okay.
And then I burnt myself out, but came back recently and decided I wasn't a fan of the fire poison just because of all the buffs I'd have to redo if I died out on a boss or something, with all the toggles and whatnot. So I switched to Shadow.
Mm-hmm. And just not dying or buff freezers was not enough of a reason to not do that. You know about buff freezers or no?
Yeah, and to be fair, I thought they were more expensive than they are because I've started using them on my Shadower for
Mm-hmm.
some bosses, and I didn't realize they were only 5 mil a piece. That's not that bad, but
Mm-hmm. It seems kind of spooky, but it's not like you use like 20 of them a day. It's not, yeah, like you said, it's not that bad. It's mostly just the weekly bosses, and to have having that insurance policy when you're doing the bosses is, it takes a little bit of pressure off of your shoulders as well. If you do die, it's not the end of the world. You can always just rebuff yourself with the ones that you need, but most of it is just going to stay buffed. So, and as you get better with the character, and as you do certain bosses on multiple different classes, you start to learn a lot more about what you need to be careful for with a boss, and some bosses you don't even think about anymore. You just kind of just blow them up. But that
yeah,
comes with
exactly.
with routine, I guess.
Yeah, and also I think I was a little worried about returning to that character because I burn out like in the middle of the burn, so
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't get the full benefit from it. I didn't get the fire poison to 250,
Yeah, I see.
and I there was a couple systems I didn't understand at the time, so like I wasted like a lot of the free nodes I got because I didn't know I needed two of each trio. And
I see. Mm-hmm. So it was just too confrontational to spend more time on that character, is what you're saying.
To an extent, but it'll like it's my second highest character now, so it'll probably and I do like it,
Mm-hmm.
like the play how it plays, so it'll probably be a bossing mule when I get to that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a good idea to just have. That's why a lot of times, you have newer players who are kind of like guessing, like, oh, should I spend time on this character? Like, which one should I commit to? Which character do I burn? And then you have to do like a lot of research, make sure you're burning the right character, and then once you are burning it, there's a lot of pressure on you to finish it and to get all the rewards. Yeah, but even if you don't finish, you have a character that's like skills, Legion, can be a bossing mule. Character can always bring value back to the account, even if it isn't perfectly the one character that you fall in love with forever and ever.
Right, yeah.
But now the Shadower is more your speed.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun on the Shadower, even though until recently, with between you and chat showing me things I didn't even understand about it,
Okay.
I overall really like it. So.
Nice. Yeah, it's always fun if you're like kind of making do with a character, like it's okay, and then you figure something out that makes it even better, and then you're like, oh, nice. It's like you just got a class buff, but there wasn't even a maintenance for it.
Yeah, now that I know how to keep up dark sight, it's kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, we were talking about the Shadow Veil and the other stuff, right? Yeah. Could you get, was it 10% final damage in Dark Side?
I think so, and I haven't messed with it yet, but there's a V matrix node I think I'll eventually use that makes it
Mm-hmm.
even better.
Yeah, it's the Shadow Walker. Is it that one?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Or Advanced Shadow. Yeah, Advanced Dark Side somewhere.
Yeah, Shadow Walker, that is what it's
Yeah,
called.
this one, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I guess in your current state, so when you look at your account, you look at your whole account. What do you enjoy doing? How do you spend your day? How do you spend your week?
Um, the, I mean, I want to take as much advantage of this event as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I know you can see on top of getting this character up, and I want to get it to 250. I've been trying to get as many of the rewards on the Macaulay as I can as well.
Okay.
So I've been honestly, I've leveled a lot of characters during this event
Mm-hmm.
because I think I got the like daily login like Mega Burninator or whatever too during at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I came back, I think my Legion was like 3.4K and now it's like 4.7. So
Mm-hmm. It's still going well.
uh, yeah, and I like leveling characters, but I'm really trying to get more into the later bosses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it seems like once I get it once, I'm pretty much set because like I got Bard Magnus after like a whole week of trying it, and then the next week I got it first try, and then the same thing happened with Seavel last week into this week.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
but
just grinding and just leveling and the rewards themselves are already huge power creeps at your level rather than just practicing more.
yeah, exactly. But I do want to get better at the
Mm-hmm.
bosses that I can't just burst down in a couple seconds. I mean, Seavel and HMAG, I still like have to do mechanics, but
Yeah.
to some extent, HMAG, I've been abusing the resistance link to get that down. So,
Mm-hmm. As you would, yeah. It's a beautiful tool for that one.
actually, I've been abusing that on. I don't need it, but I've been abusing it on Pierre as well. I
Mm-hmm.
just purposefully die during the last phase so I don't get for enough time to burst him down.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of mean. But
Just double burst with double death, yeah. Whatever works.
But yeah, so I want to progress into more bosses,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess I use a lot of your commands, and like props to you for compiling so much information on a game with so many systems.
Yeah, there's
Um,
some of the stuff has gotten a little bit out of date now. We're keeping everything up to date is the hard part. Took a while to build everything out, yeah, but with things changing, upcoming changes in New Age and stuff, definitely every now and then I gotta go do like a walkthrough and be like, okay, is this all up to date? Should this change? And the way that I have to make everything, it's like, making a beautiful little infograph will look really cool, but then whenever something changes, you have to, the more rigid the thing is that you make, the harder it is to update it. So trying to find the middle ground between something flexible and something workable and that looks inviting to use is always a challenge, but I appreciate the feedback.
yeah, and I guess where I was going with that is I think like as far as most systems go, thanks to a lot of your information, I'm pretty good. I played a lot of other like MMOs and stuff, and I consider myself pretty good at like finding the information I need and understanding systems.
Okay.
So more what I'm looking for, aside from maybe a few specific questions I have, is kind of just what I need, which systems I need to focus on that'll get kind of the most bang for my buck. With considering like my resources are pretty limited still, like
Mm-hmm.
I can't because I've recently gotten some harder bosses down. I can't really say exactly what like, for instance, my weekly income is, but um, yeah, like you can see I don't have a ton of money, and like shining is soon, so I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to take advantage of that. But like, what other systems or what other things I could focus on to get kind of the most out of my time?
Sure. So, well, there's a lot of value first and foremost in dailies and weeklies when it comes to the symbols, right? Arcane symbols. That's probably one of the most important things. And then the value from the crystals from the bosses is nice, but more so than that is the access to items that will become backups for later. So I see you're keeping quite some equips in your inventory. I guess one of the biggest systems when it comes to saving money on your account and progressing is kind of understanding how, kind of like which pieces of equips you're looking for, how long you're going to hold on to them, and what comes after it, determining whether or not that's something that you can transfer hammer into, right? And as a whole, transfer hammering is probably the most important system to understand, because that'll allow you to really, when you see an item, see the future of that item as well. As like, is this item just going to sit in my inventory when I'm done? Is it going to transfer hammer over? If so, what will transfer? What am I transferring to? And meaning, like, how far can I upgrade this to make sure that that value gets carried over? And as a result, that allows you to kind of pace yourself in terms of upgrading. Like, which item do you go harder on? Which item do you kind of just leave where it is because, you know, it stays there anyway, and the value, then it disappears. Have you looked into transfer hammer at all?
I definitely understand it for the
Mm-hmm.
most part. I know I was even asking a question in chat the other day, and you kind of pointed out that me asking that question meant I had like a good understanding of it, because I was asking about like, can I go from Pencilier to Ramaru equipment into Abso?
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, yeah, thinking about that is like definitely a good start. Like, just knowing that that's possible and that that could be a
Mm-hmm.
potential path you take. So I understand it. I just haven't had to use it yet, I
Have
guess.
Have you ever just jumped into the calculator as well? Just kind of looked at the prices and stuff like that?
No, I haven't looked at the prices. No.
Because you could kind of like simulate, what if I were to transfer hammer, you know, at certain stars, how much money am I saving there, right? Or, well, most of the time, how much am I paying extra in Mezzo? And is that extra Mezzo worth it based on how many backups I have? Because one of the main things is when you use the calculator, it'll show you, you know, on average, it'll cost this much, and on average, you'll get this many booms. And the main reason why transfer hammer can become so valuable is because you will end up with, on average, so many booms that it'll take so long to get those on your source item that you're better off, on your target item, that you're better off just getting more source items and getting high star force and then transfer hammering over. That'll basically, it'll always be a bit more expensive, but that extra cost is worth it with how much you're speeding up the entire process. So, and now with the changes, so the old transfer hammer video still looks at, you know, before the changes in Savior with no more booming and dropping in Star Force up to 15. But if you're looking at, for example, like getting into 160 items, getting into 17 star Abzo, like for example your glove, we'd want to safeguard the last star, but we will use 5 to 15 and 30% off, and that way you can make sure that you have. Hang on, let me write this down for a minute. Yes, because you won't have a whole bunch of them, right? So it seems like during the 15, star catching is a little bit tedious. You could do with star catching, but it won't make a huge difference, I think. Yeah. But I assume that's just something like 670, probably like 600 to 700 mil, you know, to be safe per piece. Now, so if you were to transfer hammer over instead, and you would do like 150 and then up to 18, right? And then transfer hammer one down. Then you could guarantee a 17. And then you could do this one maybe like without safeguarding because you have a bunch of backups. But then you'll see that this is actually quite a bit more expensive. Why? Because you have to, every single time you go 16 and 17 and then fail again and then 17 again, you have to get to 17 like 3 times, or because it's like 30% from 17 to 18, right? So like 3.3 times on average you have to go to 17 before you can make one that's worth 18. So if you're going to end up at 17 anyway, it might make more sense to just Star Force and Safeguard just on the Abzo itself because of the changes. However, if you're going to go for, let's say for like 21 stars on Abzo, and you would Safeguard, would not Star Catch. Now, this is, the range of booms goes from 0 to 15. But it's still like medium booms 1, 1.4. When it comes to Absolab, that's still not too bad versus how much that is. That's like 8.6. The alternative would be you take a 150, go for to 21, no Safeguard. That's a lot less. So then you end up at 5, right? And then that would give you a 160 at 20. And then you just do the last star. And then it's pretty wide, right? Because the median is you just tap once or twice and then you get it. And then if you fail and you have to get right back up, then suddenly the average goes away a lot higher. But this total is a lot cheaper. You see that difference?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so not just the amount of booms, you're more likely to just end up with 0 booms, but that's where you save a lot of money. So mostly on the front end for Star Forcing early on in the game, it's not as crazy with needing to hold on to a whole bunch of stuff. There's more like the items that you can start getting relatively early that have a lot of purposes in the future. So it's like the Kana Treasure Ring and the Dominator Pendants from normal Arc, like those kind of drops. Those are good ones to start having in your dailies, like those two, and then just Gollux, Helix as quickly as you can start running that daily because it's just such a limited resource, and the further you go into the game, the more pressure will be on that system. So when you get lucky here or there with a drop, the more you can kind of feel where you can take a little bit of gas off, and you have a little bit less pressure there. Then and then you can fill up that hole with some time in another system where maybe you haven't gotten as lucky.
Okay.
Kind of keep time managing, But it's mainly like the things in the dailies command, right? So you got like the symbols, daily bosses, weekly bosses. You can keep up, with all the daily bosses. Well, not all, but you could consider keeping up with the daily bosses that drop the higher tier souls, the SS tier souls. So it'd be like normal Magnus, normal Queen, normal Vellum. And that's what I did for a while. Do look those 3 and then normal Arc and then Helix, and that would be like one batch on a character. But obviously depending on which character and depending on how long that would take, that might be reasonable or that might be way too much for you.
Oh yeah, I've been mostly doing every boss that I'm capable of doing every day, at least on the Shadower, just because I'm not at the point where like I'm getting to crystal cap or anything, so even just for money, it's good.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, the thing is always like money and EXP is always cool, but the further you go, the more you want to look at money over time, EXP over time, right? Because people are like, oh, why aren't you always doing the highest level? Well, now it's getting better and better, but like, why aren't you always doing the highest level Monster Park? I was like, well, I want the coins and I want the potions, and the EXP per time is just not good on those high level ones on characters that are weak. So I'm just going to do Night Stronghold, very easy, very fast, and just get the value and get out. It's not because the EXP number is higher that it's always better. It still depends on how long it takes. And that's why some people with like stronger characters like to use their mules like daily Horntail runs and stuff. Sometimes they do the thing where you kill like all the bodies of Horntail except for one, so you can go in again, kind of like with Zakum arms. But for a lot of classes, it takes so long to get to the third body of Horntail that it's not worth your time to do that. You might as well just, either wait for potions or just grind out some levels.
Okay, that's fair. I hadn't really considered that. I know to some extent I was running it just for like, because I still have so many early boss accessory stuff that I'm just like kind of chasing like better random flames on things and stuff just in case, just to upgrade here or there maybe. But
yeah, so
I'm probably getting a little past that point.
Yeah. If I look at your inventory now with all the equips, which So with what I was just saying about the transfer hammer, right, and then with the calculator and everything, what are some pieces where like um, that you're just holding just in case, and we can kind of go through the logic on why you would want to keep it, why you would be okay not to keep it, I guess.
I was gonna say that's something I kind of needed help with, but I didn't want to like just be like, hey, can you help me organize my inventory? Because yeah, I hold on to like way too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in the beginning, it's
Most
better to hold on to more rather than less. But I guess after a while, once you're running bosses, you also see like which things you get a lot of, and which things you not really get a lot of.
Yeah, so I guess to some extent, some of it I was holding on to because even though I understand how like transfer hammer works and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
to some extent, I wasn't sure. Like some items, I'm like, can this potentially be something I transfer? Um, my inventory is a little different from that picture now, but
Okay.
um, like all of the Ranmaru stuff I have because it's transferable to Abso.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's good to hold on to, but
Yeah, so it's something that you can do. So here's like the calculation that you would do, right? Like if you don't have the Abzo stuff yet, but you want to take advantage of the sale now and then transfer hammer it over. If you would go from like 0 to 16 on level 150 piece with no safeguarding, no star catching, and just like sending it, just to see how much that would be. It looks like that would be a little bit over 300 mil. And then you'd basically have the equivalent of a 15 star level 160. Also no safeguard, right? But probably just like off event only during a 30% off on a Abso, right? So you basically get this. So it'd
okay.
still be a bit cheaper if you were to fodder now and just get up to 16 because it's 100%, and then you'll have basically an instant 15 star Abso when you get the piece, and then you could just transfer hammer it over. Well, for example, you have the gloves, but you also already have the Abso glove. So at that point, you always want to be looking at what is the purpose of the piece that you're holding on to, and is it going to be keeping that role? I guess. Did you keep the gloves or no?
Which gloves?
God, what is it? Is it Tsukuyomi or something? The
Oh yeah, I have like three of them.
mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there's here another one here. Yeah. So if you're keeping an item because it has epic potential, then you can just give it 1 star and transfer it over to whatever is the highest level that you're going to be holding on to. So let's say that you're trying to, if you're trying to get 17-star Abso, that's like the next step. There's two ways to go about that, right? One would be to transfer hammer a lower level into it, and then another one would be to just go on the Abso itself. If you're only aiming for 17 eventually, there's no boom. And as you can tell by the calculator, it's pretty much the same cost whether you just approach it as an Abso or you approach it for transfer hammering. You can win about, what was it, about 50 mil? 50, 60 mil each if you do it fodder now during Shining, as long as you don't have the Abso piece yet. Then you can transfer into it later. And if you do that with an item that's already epic, then you start from epic on the Abso Lab, right? So you have one Abso glove now that was like 4 stars. Yeah, 5 stars. But it's epic now. Okay. So it's different than in this picture here. So how did you make that glove epic?
I
Oh.
think I just rolled it a few times until it turned epic because I was using it, so I was like, I'll just look for a decent potential on it for now.
Mm-hmm.
Like
So.
just with the cubes that drop from like everything.
Mm-hmm. But you have, at least here in this picture, you have an epic penciler glove in here.
Yeah. Oh, so is that something I should have transferred instead?
Yeah, so if you give this 1 star, transfer it into one of the level 150 gloves, give the level 150 glove just 1 star and transfer it over, and then now you have an epic glove, right? Epic Absolute glove. and then those cubes that you used to tier it up, those could have been used to re-roll or maybe to try to tier up past epic already, because it's good to hold those pieces if they are going to have a function, right? So what is going to be their function? Excuse me. What is the value that they're going to be able to have for your account? So like extra eye and face accessories for Zakum. Are you going to ever boom your piece, and do you need like to transfer the trace over? No, because you can only boom past 15, right? So these items cannot go past 15, so that's not something they can do. What could the other thing be? Maybe one is for damage, one is for drop, one is for meso, right? That's possible. Ideally, the pieces will end up being for drop or meso, and the damage pieces will want stronger other accessories there later. So typically for those, you only just use one ever. But like you said, if you're not committed into the item yet and you're still running the boss, then you always want to check, like, do I find another one maybe that starts with epic potential or one that starts with a much nicer flame? And then as long as you're not committed yet to any piece, then you can just immediately switch to that other one. But it's about seeing the value, right? It's about seeing, okay, what are my cubes worth here? I have an epic glove. Okay, I can just transfer that over and have instant epic, and then my cubes get different value by using it on different items. Because it's kind of like a shame to have your inventory be there to hold those items for that value, but then when you have the opportunity to use the value, then you don't use it.
Okay, yeah, I guess I didn't think about just moving the potential up to the app, so that makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so like in the past, what we would have done, is if you only have access to pencilier gloves, you just hold a bunch of pencilier gloves. Maybe you hold like 4 or 5, right, in case they could boom. Again, now they don't boom, so just one would be good enough as well. And then if you have at least one level 150 glove, then that would be enough too, if it was very rare. And then you could, for example, take the Pencilier during 30% off, or a Shining Star Force up to 15 and up to 16, and transfer it into level 150 glove. And then that one comes out, epic and 15 stars, and then tap that one to 16 again, and then tap that one into Abzo, and then tap Abzo to 16 again, and then you have a 16-star Abzo that's epic, essentially. But because of the cost and all that stuff, and since your glove is now already epic, that means we can just do it straight up on the Abzo glove. But that also means that there's now no value anymore for the Pencilier glove or for the Sengoku glove. Those now kind of like lost their purpose, because that lower potential transfer is not really financially relevant, and the potential tier transfer is also no longer relevant now. So now those pieces are kind of just no longer needed to transfer any value. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so once I've gotten like an item of a certain level and it's kind of up to epic, like everything before it kind of becomes useless.
Yeah, because it most of the time it includes the value, but there's also like there's no other level one. If there's another level 170 equip, which there isn't, but if there were, then you could just transfer the Absol Lab into that later, right? Once you were ready to transfer over, and then the Pencilier would still not have any value. The only time it could have value is if you would need multiple of one piece. Like there are some niches where people go for gloves with like auto steel to make slightly more money. But that's something that you could then do to your Absolab glove when you switch to an Arcane glove, for example. And then your Absolab glove will get a little bit of its value returned in some way that will give you more money on your account. But that pencil glove, because of how we transition from one glove to the next, it won't have any other value. So the gloves, I guess, they can just leave the inventory at this point. And the other face accessory that you have, the one that's epic, but you were in the picture here, you're wearing a rare one, but you have an epic one in your inventory. Is it like a way better flame, or?
Oh no, I was working on changing it because the epic one I have has like terrible lines, and the one that's rare that I have has like percent luck, so it's just better at the moment.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, it's fine if this is your... Because what will happen very quickly is that some item that might have been like a really nice item like a week ago could now be like, in terms of how easy it is for you to replace it or to improve on it, might be worthless essentially. It's kind of weird, right? Like when you're going into CRA gear and you're upgrading your own CRA gear, and you're getting like, you're getting like 12 star, and then you go up to like 17, and then a 12 or 11 star item is just worth absolutely nothing then, right? It's like orders of magnitude smaller. So you could just make like 16 a few times and 17 a few times, and then the next event you're going for like 19 stars, and then a 17 star item is kind of like no big deal anymore. Just like when you're starting to play and you hit like 20 damage, and then by the end of that same day you're hitting like 20,000 damage. It's like you blow through a lot of numbers in this game very quickly.
Right, okay.
So like if you were to find a condensed power crystal, like you have now that one that's epic, but if you, instead of one that's epic, you find someone with like a flame on it that's like 40 luck and 6 all-stat or something, that might actually be more valuable to get to epic than to keep the epic one and try to get a better flame on that later. So it's more finding, like kind of like realizing what the value of something is on the thing. So when it comes to like flame score and potential and star forcing, just jumping around in the calculators a little bit, and if you're just wondering, just kind of checking like how much is something worth, that could be a good idea to kind of determine, do I need to hold on to this for the future? Like, can this maybe be valuable, or do I replace my current one that I have with this and invest in this one instead? Or is this just garbage, and can I just get rid of it so that my inventory doesn't get too cluttered?
Okay, that makes sense.
Have you looked into flaming a little bit, like flame score, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I haven't messed around with like the calculator yet because I haven't really, unless like a flame I get as a drop is about to expire, I haven't really used them yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't looked at the calculator much. That was kind of a question I had because I got all my node stones, so I'm saving my event points for flames, but I'm kind of waiting till the end of the event to buy them.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You want to see how much you're left with and how much you can truly dedicate to this, and how much is is more souped up by the more important items.
Yeah, and I guess some of the question I had with that was, since I have like the fake Solad weapon and I
Mm-hmm.
don't see myself getting the real one before the event's over,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that'll change, but I'm not sure. I'm kind of wondering, like, if I don't have them before those flames expire, what would be like the next best thing to use them
Yeah. So true, real Absolab weapon. Are you close to it? Because I mean, it's in 2 days, right?
No, the only reason I even have Absolab gloves is because someone in my alliance was randomly one day like, "Hey, who wants a Lomian carry?" And
Yeah,
I
you're
went,
like, oh, I'll take one. Yeah, by the end of the event, yeah, well, yeah. So the order is typically just like weapon first, right? Because of the tiers in the weapon and magic attack is the highest, and then right after that, it's usually just whatever is the highest level items you have with flame advantage. So that would be everything else, Absolab essentially, and then right after that would be just 10 levels lower with flame advantages. It would be once you get the real CRA gear, which I think you have.
"Yeah, I have those in my inventory."
Yeah, you have them, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was waiting for Shining to upgrade those so that I can swap into those.
Mm-hmm. You could get, I don't know what your flame currently is on your weapon, but getting like an okay flame on your current weapon is also pretty nice, of course, because you will be holding on to it until you get the...
You can reroll the flame on the fake
Yeah,
Solid.
yeah, on the fake one you can reroll the flame, yeah. You can make it into a soul
Um,
weapon and you can reroll the flame, but other than that you can't do anything with it.
okay, I'll have to check. I didn't know that. I'll have to check the flame score on that then later.
Mm-hmm. Alright, yeah, so anything, probably for your state, anything like tier 5 with some useful stuff, or a tier 6 would be really good value for you. So probably aim for that, and then after that, you know, whatever Abso otherwise you have, and then aim for the flame score. Probably like something in the 80s, I'm guessing, like mid 80s. Flame score is probably pretty nice for early on. Yeah. Yeah, these levels, yeah, it's a little different, but... Sorry, what were we saying?
I was just gonna say my the CRA pieces I have, the flames are terrible, so after I do the weapon, I can definitely throw some on there.
Yeah, just at the average value from because if you go exclamation mark flaming, there's the cost calculator here as well. So if you have the CRA pieces, 140, 159, you can use powerful on armor. Like to use 9, 3, 10 at least. And even if you're looking for something like 70 or something, you know, it's like 10 to 15 flames. Like it's pretty common that just come by. But if you know, as soon as you go a little bit higher, it's like, oh, that's not too bad. Let's do the same jump again, and then suddenly it's like, you know, order of magnitude. And then if you just add like a little bit, then it gets really pricey. But like 70-ish on the CRA, 80-ish on the Abso, like that's very, very doable. And you basically just bring them all up evenly, right? So the boss accessory items as well, I guess, like, but you focus on the Absolab and the CRA because you still have weeks where you can do the other bosses for the boss accessory pieces, right? And you can still luck into a really nice flame there before you're really committing to the piece. Once all the other stuff is kind of done, then you can also just kind of flame whatever boss accessory piece that you end up with that doesn't have the best of flames. But at that point, you're probably already dedicated into the potential for drop or meso gear, and at that point redoing that potential and rolling that potential with cubes, that would be more expensive than, you know, if you find a nice flame on another drop. So at that point you don't care anymore about committing to the item.
Okay.
So the general order for like all of the upgrading stuff is that in the beginning you just get basic Star Force, like up to 10 or so, just to get those easy stats, right? It's pretty cheap early on. But then it gets really, really expensive really quickly. So usually, right after that, the potential becomes more important. So predominantly the weapon, the secondary, and the emblem, because those are the items that you keep longer and that you have access to earlier. And because they're relative forms of upgrading, percentage-wise, just have way more impact on your total damage output. So for the emblem, so the secondary, you kind of want to wait until you have one that you're going to keep longer. You have your shield already, so you can basically just commit to that potential-wise. You don't transfer hammer or anything with that. Like if it ever booms, you just have to craft another one and transfer the trace over. But that does mean that you can go hard on the potential early on, because it's never going to get transferred over where, you know, it only gets carried over up to epic or anything like that. So you can go harder on the potential there. And then for your emblem, you basically hold that until you get a Saren emblem drop at like level 275 or something at the earliest, probably for you. So, yeah, so you keep that for quite a while as well. So the emblem, the secondary, and the weapon are very important because they can get weapon attack, boss damage, and IED. And that's where the really big bossing damage and overall damage output comes into play. So like your current emblem, you don't want the stat on there. Stat is actually really bad for emblems.
Actually, since I sent you that picture, I re-rolled it with percent attack on it. So.
And is it still epic now?
Yeah.
But it's got like 6% attack. Yeah.
Yeah, it actually rolled 6% magic and 6% attack.
Yeah, of course, yeah. It'd be nice if it was 12, because then you could kind of like cheat, and then it's basically a unique item, and you didn't have to pay for it. But yeah, so that's like that step basically where the weapon, secondary, and emblem they just get slowly tiered up, like up to unique, and then probably even up to legendary. But then, of course, for the weapon, you might keep it actually epic if it's nice lines, or unique, because you don't want to invest too much into the potential when you're still switching weapons. Especially if you're switching, like a fake weapon. If you're going from Fafnir into Abzo, you don't want to go legendary, because then if you want to transfer over for the Star Force, then you lose 2 tiers on the potential, right? So that's not really valuable. So you want to get your damage from other places in your account, from your symbol dailies, bringing your arcane power higher up, from your nodes, from the event shops and all that, bringing your final damage on your skills up. And then that makes it so that your weapon doesn't have to go super hard until you're committed to a weapon that you hold longer, like an Absolab weapon. You can definitely go all the way up to legendary there, and then with the arcane weapon after that, of course. And basically, once the potential is like good 2 useful lines, legendary, and the weapon secondary and emblem, then usually you have enough pieces and all of your accessories are usually already epic. Maybe some of them are unique, and then you move into like a drop and meso set. So that's when the potential is still very important. Now, of course, with Shining, there's you get a little itchy to spend some money and try to get to 17 stars. And of course, there's a lot of damage there. But the problem is if you go there too quickly, then that money is going towards just the raw damage that you might not need, as long as you bring up those other things that we talked about, right? You bring out those other things as well. You might actually not need that much damage from your armors yet, and it'd be better to kind of have that money go towards the potential now, even though the Shining is like right there. So if you already have some things that for Shining can be useful and that can help you transfer value up, then we'll make sure that we capitalize on that during Shining. But other than that, we'll probably try to get decent amount of money towards potential, because that's just like in the state of the game that's most valuable for you.
Okay. Yeah, my thoughts for Shining were kind of, because I don't know how much money it says I have there, but I have 3 bill now.
Yeah, it says 2 here, but okay.
So it's probably not going to do a lot of stuff, but I was hoping to at least maybe get the gloves and maybe my real CRA pieces up to like 17.
Yeah, depending on your budget, it's probably a good idea just to aim for 16, because in terms of like money per upgrade, 16 is much more safe and much more value, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then if you get there on most of your pieces, then you can always decide to safeguard the last one and continue up to 17. But if you're on limited budget, always make sure you get those guaranteed and those high value upgrades first, and then go for the riskier ones if you still have some left over.
Okay, so like get all of the pieces I care about to 16 before I even think about a 17.
Yeah, that's what I would do. The only exception you could say is something that's, but yeah, no, I think that's a general, like a good rule of thumb. So you've got some prepped stuff that you can transfer over, right? When the Abzo comes. So the stuff that's already closer to 16, I would do that stuff first to get those finished, and then, right, because those are the guaranteed ones that are closer. It's like you could do the cape, and then do you have a Zakum cape? This is Von Leon. Oh, you have one of these capes, right? The Ramaru capes. So you could, So you could get like 1 star on this one, and the pencilier that's 15, and then transfer into the because the potential will save through, right? I mean the flame won't, but that's not the biggest loss. Transfer that into the Ramaru cape, and then get the Ramaru cape to 16, and then once you get the Abzo cape, you'll have instant 15 star with 9% on it.
So I guess this is a little tangential, but like, should I get some of the other Abso pieces before getting the real weapon? Because the fake one will carry me for a little while.
Yeah, I think that's, in general, that's probably a good idea. Yeah.
Okay.
If you feel like you need a lot of damage, like, the main reason that you will get the weapon is because you're gonna like getting it to 17 will be cheap for you, and flaming it will be cheap for you, and you'll just spend a little bit extra money on the potential, because that's the real thing that's going to set it aside from the fake one, is that it's going to have way better potential. But at this point, getting it to 17 star and getting it a nice flame that's like similar or better to like your current one, once you work on this one's flame, that's already going to be a significant upgrade, like commitment of money for you at this point, which means that it's better to just write out that value from the current weapon until you kind of really need that extra damage, until you're so many areas into the Arcane River that your symbols can't really keep up anymore, your nodes need more time because you've leveled so quickly, and then you kind of need to brute force more damage through your emblem and your secondary and your weapon to make sure that the percentage attack is high enough and can keep up, and can make sure that you can keep training an area around your level.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I realized when I'm looking at what you're looking at, I didn't show my arcane stuff. But
The arcane stuff? Oh, your symbols, you mean?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Which I mean, it's nothing crazy. The last two are at like level 9. I have like 910 arcane force.
Mm-hmm.
So I just realized I didn't send a picture of that, but
That's okay. I mean, it's mostly, those weeklies are a godsend now, right? Get those 45 symbols.
yeah, those made it so fast.
Nice boost. Yeah, every new area you get like 45 next week, boom, and then suddenly you're level 7 already. It's a great start. Just try to keep up. And you put some in the hyperstats as well, right? To keep up with the damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
I maybe committed too much, because I think I'm beyond, even in the highest level area I can go to right now, I think I'm beyond the like whatever the amount you need over to like take no damage and stuff.
Yeah, I think I saw that, but it keeps going very quickly. Like even in Celas, like in Esfera it goes up to 900, but even in Celas it goes because it's plus 50%, right, to deal 50% bonus damage, so that stays harder and harder, or gets harder and harder to keep up with. Like the lowest area in it's like 670 here. So you need over 1,000.
I kind of made the assumption, without like asking anyone in chat or anything first, that the event buffs followed like the same priority as hyperstats, so I have some arcane force from the event buffs too.
Yeah, in general, it's a bit more steep when it comes to the system of the event skill itself. Like getting up to like level 3 is pretty much free, and then 4 and 5 cost you an arm and a leg. So if you're more a beginner account, it makes more sense to kind of like spread out among all the stats and get like a good base value of all of them. And then if you're further in the game and you know more exactly what you're doing, you might be maxing out more like 1 or 2 stats, and then that's basically it. But it's definitely a good stat to have, yeah. And even people who are like clearing Black Mage will want it, because then with the hyper stats and with the bonus buff, they can actually get enough bonus arcane power to deal bonus damage to the Black Mage, which is highly desirable. One thing I did see here that I did want to mention, when you're at the state where you are now, basically when you're past 3k Legion, it becomes more and more valuable to fill out the outside of the grid versus the inside of the grid. So kind of want to move away from the beautiful block. I know you spend a lot of time here and a lot of work on making it fit perfectly. But you basically want to start getting out of this block instead and move more into the stats on the outside. So you're okay with always 100 crit, right? Yeah, so once you're at 100 crit, like that's cool, but then you want to max out your critical damage, and then for bossing, most likely that IED, and then go into the boss damage. And, same priorities, like with the hyper stats, essentially. And then when you're mobbing, you basically just like spread them out, but you still want that critical damage when you're mobbing as well. That's still like your big chunk of damage, so You want to kind of, if it comes to like the shapes of the Legion, ideally, it keeps growing and growing, then you keep going further. But so usually you prioritize here between the critical damage and the normal monster damage, as long as you need damage to kill the monsters, right? And then as long as you can kill, then you can go into bonus EXP. Well, yeah, so crit rate first, then crit damage, then normal monster damage, then bonus EXP, basically in that order. And then, once it's filled out, and then you can start going into middle again. But that's really something you start doing once you're like past 8k Legion or something. Then you go back into the middle of the grid. But otherwise, you focus on maxing out the outsides, because it just scales better stat-wise for damage.
Okay, yeah, that was actually on my list of questions, was when to kind of like, because I always notice like people with higher legions just kind of have a line across the middle into the outsides, and I was wondering like when to do that. So the answer's now.
Yeah, so usually starting at 3k is when you get, extra space, and then you get to put 5 extra characters on. Usually you can still kind of max everything at that point, but then once you get to 4k, that's when the grid starts getting decently big. And that's probably around that time where you're now that you probably want to start redoing it. And then, yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about it, I don't know if you use the solver for it, but try to see if any pieces that you know are going to level soon-ish, try to put those on kind of like the outside, so that if they grow into like open space rather than into the middle of the grid where you just fixed everything.
Oh, fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, just try to put down like the biggest pieces first, so that they're like locked in, and then the small ones around it, so you can move those around more easily in the future. But yeah, you still have like 12 characters you can create, or maybe a little bit less now, to build out that grid. So 6k is gonna, it's very doable to get to 6,000, right? With 42 classes, it just costs a little bit of coins to afford all the rank ups, but you got a little bit saved up, I see, so probably not too big of an issue.
Yeah, I don't, until I get to sort of an area of Legion level where I feel like it'll slow down a lot, but like you said, right now I don't even have all 42 characters, so it's pretty quick for now. Like I'm just not spending coins really until then, except on upgrades.
Yep. Yeah, disproportionately it's gonna go to upgrades until finally the time between upgrades is so long that you can start spending on yourself. Spending on your progress. Yeah, I guess we went a little bit to a sideways topic with the Legion stuff. I guess we can we could also just go through the screenshots, I guess, as such, see if there's, because did you have any other questions written down that you want to get to?
I do have some, but it seems like you're kind of getting to a lot of them without that. So if you wanted to just look at the pictures and note things, like I said, I'm just trying to figure out what is kind of the best things for me to work on that'll give me kind of the best progress as of now. So.
Yeah, let's see. So yeah, shield you could get to 16 on Shining. Other than that, the potential is where the most of the work will happen. And you can't flame it, so that's easy. Let's start on the bottom. Rings will slowly work its way up. So try to not get too attached, quote unquote, to like stat on your accessories. Because they're basically there for a long time. They're there to give you drop and meso gear. Or just drop and meso percentage, right? A little bit of stat, a little bit of stat bonus, a little bit of flame on some of the other accessories, not on the rings, of course. But mainly they're there to give you that utility. So for damage, don't roll for it, because you'll have to roll out of it anyway, right? And don't get too accustomed to it, so it also doesn't feel like you're losing a bunch of damage when you're rolling away for it. If you do end up rolling, like 24% stat or something when you're looking for drop or meso, then hold that and then just make another, and then you'll basically have a slightly earlier damage piece, I guess. But yeah, don't chase the damage, but also don't roll it away if you get it.
I don't know if you were specifically talking about the flame ring, but that's how it came. Have it rolled
Yeah, this
out.
one comes with unique. Yeah, yeah. But let's say like if this one rolled like 21 or something, like 966 on unique, then yeah, I guess it's staying unique, and I guess it's a damage ring now. But until that happens, the only focus for this one would be, for example, because this is already unique and you don't have any other legendary accessories, I don't think. That would be the first one that you would tier up and try to get to drop in Mezzo, so it immediately can start generating more revenue for you. And just like with the Legion block, you go into bonus EXP once you have enough damage to kill the monsters. In a similar way, you want to get your damage, you know, from those other things I mentioned, right? From your arcane power, from your nodes, from your weapon, your secondary, and your emblem. And your accessories, you want to be there to have no pressure on them to bring you damage, but just the thing that they're there for is to give you drop rate and Mesoobtain. But you want to get the drop rate and Mesoobtain once you have enough damage from the other pieces so that you don't lose kill potential, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's actually perfect because that was one of my questions was about like getting meso and drop rate stuff. So that,
Yeah, so that would be usually that's like right after your weapon secondary and emblem being established. Either you get really lucky unique lines, or you get like decent, just like okay legendary lines, and then you move on from there. So just like with your weapon secondary and emblem, you kind of want to see the 9 lines of potential on those 3 pieces kind of as the one block. You want to have a good balance of all 9 of those things, so you kind of just see them as one group of 9 potentials. And in the same way, you kind of want to see all the prime lines in all of your accessories as like one block as well. So you have 9 lines, 9 prime lines there. So you kind of want to see that as optimizing for Mesoobtain and for drop rate. So typically go for 5 lines of Mesoobtain, 4 lines of drop rate. And once you have that between the 9 accessories, then you're good. And as long as you don't have that, you want to like optimize within the items that you have until you get to that configuration, essentially. And then, you know, all the min-maxing on which lines are exactly where, that'll all happen somewhere, you know, later down the line. But in the beginning, you're just trying to, you know, just to hit those targets so that you can have your solid foundation and then move on from there.
okay.
If I look at this picture, what I see is like, you know, the shoulder is on its way to become something you could transfer hammer into Abzo, right? The cape as well, we talked about that a little bit, and you already have a Remru cape, so you already have something to stepping stone your way up to 16. So the Lichen boots, there's just like gloves. It's basically gloves and shoes mostly are kind of like weird equip, right? Because they're kind of like in between sets, and then, you know, they're kind of like floating in between. Ideally, but you probably already noticed this, and that's why you stopped at 2 stars. The superior gear is just really pricey when it comes to star forcing, and even though it gives more stats per star, it's too pricey, and we kind of just don't do it. But because they have a different star forcing system and cost system and booming system and everything, because of that, they also don't get discounted during star forcing events, and you can also not transfer hammer into it or from it, so all of that value stays like stuck on that item as well. So it's best for those pieces to just not star force them, and you know, you can get an okay potential maybe if it's already epic, and you know, if it doesn't have the worst flame in the world, that's cool. But most of the time you kind of just, they're really like placeholder pieces, and then you move on from those relatively quickly.
I forgot to send a picture of this. I just have those equipped because they are better for damage currently, but I do have 15-star Pencilier boots with an upper potential, and I have the Ramaru boots too.
Yeah, and you have at least one root shoe I saw as well, so that one would also work, right? To transfer hammer, yeah. But I saw in your inventory you did have like some Nova boots backup as well, but those I personally I just NPC those because they were like 100k NPC, so it's also like a nice value. But we're not going to be transfer hammering over, they're not going to be booming, none of that stuff. So there's no additional value to having multiple of those.
Okay, yeah, that was kind of a question in my like inventory management. I was like, I'm holding on to those because I didn't know if they were useful. I didn't know if like at some point people use those or just not at all. And I guess it's not really at all. So.
Yeah, they're just like placeholders in the beginning, and for side characters it's nice, I guess. But like the cape, The cape usually, once you get it from HMAG, but then HMAG tends to drop the Tyrant cape as well, almost at the same rate, and the Tyrant cape is so much better, so that cape, if you use it for like 2 or 3 days, and then it gets replaced essentially. And the shoes, yeah, there's just a bunch of intermediary shoes. You get like a really good flame on a Von Leon shoe, maybe you wear that. You get lucky on a Pencilier shoe from an not from Elite Boss, or from like a Rune of Riches with a nice flame, then maybe use that for a while, Whatever you can get your hands on that's not totally terrible, you wear that for a while. And if it can be transfer hammered over, then all the better. But like I said, so the Nova, so there's 3 types of equips that are superior. So that's the Elite Elysium, the Nova, and then the Tyrant stuff. So that's so it has the superior letter here, right? So they are completely out of category when it comes to transfer hammering and stuff. So even if you have something epic, you can transfer hammer that over to something else to try to give it epic, just because the star forcing system. The main thing for transfer hammer is transfer value from one to another, but because their star forcing system works differently, it's just not allowed.
Right, that makes sense. And another thing I have that I've held on to, just because I didn't know if it's just outdated content or if it's useful in any capacity, but like I have the things that drop from Cygnus.
Yeah. Oh, those emblems, you mean?
Yeah, and I think I turned one of them into a pair of gloves just to see what the equips were like. And I don't know if that's just like outdated content or if it is useful.
Yeah, a little bit. So, I mean, it's equips, right? And they're level 140. So, what does that mean? It basically, if you're looking at it purely from transfer hammering, it basically takes it up the same spot as Pencilier. But Pencilier is more common to get en masse when it comes to star forcing. So for star forcing, it's not useful. Then you could just get a bunch of Pencilier if you wanted to. But then even for Pencilier, right, it's not really useful because we just go for Absolab, and we can kind of just do that on the Absolab because we don't really go past 17. And what comes after that? Arcane Gloves, and that's level 200, and you can't transfer hammer over. So all of that trickles down to, for the gloves, like, it's not really useful. Some people like the look of the items, and then you can anvil, which means you can take the look of one item and the functionality of another one if you want to make something look like something else. It seems like you're holding on to a few items at least like that, right? Got some extra daggers, and seems like you're maybe trying to see if there's one that you like the look of more.
Actually, those were also just things I was holding on to because I didn't know if they were useful at all. I guess the Raimaru ones, do you transfer hammer weapons as well?
Yeah, you could. Yeah. So if you have some 150s, and you use that as transfer fodder during the event, if you get that one up to 16, then once you get the Abzo, you could transfer hammer over. Just make sure that's level 150 into 160, right? So if you have you have a level 140 dagger, I see, right? Pencilier with epic potential, but so if you give it 1 star, transfer hammer over to 150. Now that one is epic, and then if you take that one to 16 during the shining event, then it would transfer hammer over into an epic 15-star Abzo as soon as you get it.
Okay. So yeah, I knew mechanically how transfer hammer worked, but like I definitely have learned now that basically the only stuff I'm holding on to is stuff that I plan to transfer like potentials up to Abso.
Yeah, the main purpose in the beginning is kind of potential and maybe even 3-lining, because then you don't need all the potential scrolls and you don't need all the potential stamps, and those are really expensive in the beginning because you're not really star forcing, and you're not really star forcing in like any area where it gets really spooky, with booming and everything. So for that, there's no purpose that early on. It really starts becoming valuable once you start star forcing very, very far past 17 and you have a lot of booms potentially. Hopefully not too many, of course. And then it makes more sense to have all of that risk offloaded on the front end of all of the fodder gear, so that you don't have to do any risky stuff on the back end once you've transfer hammered. But that's mostly for the stuff that we transfer hammer into, essentially all the stuff that we transfer hammer into the superior Gollux equips. So that's level 150 accessory set. So all the pieces you can get to transfer hammer into those are things you definitely want to hold on to as early as possible and for as long as possible. But those pieces, those stand out more. So it's like the Kana Treasure Ring, the Dominator Pendant. The Kana Treasure Ring is from Princess No, right? Dominator Pendant from normal Arc, if you get it. And then the Reinforced Earrings, that's also from Gollux, so that's pretty simple. You keep the same. And then for the belt, either the Reinforced Belt or the Pink Bean Belt. Like, those are basically the pieces that you're going to be holding onto along like a lot of them. And then for the other equips, you're mostly going to hold onto their resources. So it's going to be like the emblems for CRA. It's going to be like the boss droplets and the area droplets for arcane gear. You know, like those things are just going to be more a resource rather than a physical equip in your inventory. So those emblems, the emblems from Cygnus, I use them on some mules, but only if you don't go for Abzo gear. But generally you should go for Abzo gear because it just makes more sense. And it's also flame advantage, higher level, so it just far overpowers the Cygnus pieces.
Right, okay. And so at this stage in my account, should I kind of just use my CRA tokens to try to see if I get like better flames before I bother trying to like star and cube the ones I have?
At this part, yeah. Because you have the inventory space and you have no flames, so the average value of opening is actually the quality of an eternal flame. So that also makes it more valuable to just open them up and see if you get something nice. And if you have 3 of each piece, and you try to Star Force and something booms, then you just transfer whatever trace you have into the other one with the shittier flame. But then the flame carries over of the one that you initially boomed. So then that value will get saved. Same thing with like the unique potential and everything, just from being a trace. So right now I would do that, yeah.
Okay, I kind of wasted some time and money then and some resources because I think I was like, I have unique potential on the CRA top, which I guess is fine. Like I'll just have to manually flame that one, which I mean I'll have to look at the flame score. I don't think it's a terrible flame, but I really have no idea.
Yeah,
but
say you open a top though, and the flame is like it is. So we talked about that in the beginning, right? It is possible that you open up a flame that's so good that even your unique potential is kind of shit in comparison to it, and you leave that behind, right? It's possible. It wouldn't be desirable, but it is possible.
Would that potentially, like, the flame save me more money than re-rolling the potential over again to get to unique again?
Exactly, yeah. So rolling to, so if we take the whole sum, right? So we check cubing. So you have like the tier up cost. So you have like your top. You get the top to unique. So it probably is about 200, like to epic and to unique. So it's probably like 300 mil or something is invested, right? So that value is 300 mil. So when it comes to flames, that's the value of like what, 35 flames or something. So if you look at the flame value, 150 of your armor. When it comes to 30 median, right? So that's like an 85 flame score on the CRA is like the same cost. But if you open up and you get pretty lucky and you get something over 100, and that's like the value of 6 times tiering up to unique, then it doesn't make sense to hold a unique top with, to hold like a 300 mil potential with a 300 mil flame and to not take the item with the 1.7 bill value flame, right?
Okay.
Even though right now in the game it doesn't feel like that, eventually it will, right? So you don't want to hard commit yourself to something now where eventually you're going to be like, oh wow, this is worth so much more. And it gets really weird because technically you can open up like a really weird one with maybe not quite this high, but like with some, right, with something that's technically worth 5 trillion, but then of course that's not going to have the same value as 5 trillion mesos in your hand would for now, right? But eventually that could even get so crazy that if you have like 19 star CRA and you're planning to jump to 22, but you have like, 200 of these coupons, you might want to open them all up. And what you can also do right now, for you, that's not really valuable. But you can also learn through alchemy, you can learn fusion, and then you can take two of the same equip and smash them together. And then if you're of the Meister rank for the crafting, then you can also get your outcome for your flame from that fusion will also be the same as an eternal flame. So that way you could almost do double the amount of reveals compared to just individually through fusion. And then, if you're planning to spend like, okay, we spend, I don't know, 20 bill on the potential, 5 bill on the flame, and 25 bill on the star forcing, just pulling some numbers out of my ass. That's like the goal. That's like the value of your current pants that maybe have like, like a flame score of like 95 or something. And then you do those tickets. And then boom, you find something with like 125 or something. Maybe now that flame alone is actually worth more to you than all the other upgrades. So maybe you just completely abandon that, what you already have, and just completely go to the other piece. It just comes down to what value are you seeking for your character and how much worth is it. Unique looks like it's worth now a lot to you because you have like 2 of them. But how much is that really worth? How much money is that really?
Right, okay. I think I overvalue that a little bit because I've never really bought cubes to roll for unique. I just get the ones that like expire after a little while, like randomly occasionally. So those seem more valuable to me than they really are.
Yeah, it's you kind of want to see, oh, that's a cube, a cube would cost me 7.5 mil. This is like a 7.5 mil item. But 7.5 million mesos are always worth more than an item that's worth 7.5 because of the flexibility of the resource. So
right.
It's good to kind of keep track of like how valuable this is, but at some point, especially with like blinking cubes and this is about to expire, there's going to be times where you're like, okay, if I use this cube now, I have like a 98% chance that I destroy the potential of whatever I throw this on, and like a 2% chance that it's the same or slightly better. At that point, you don't want to be using those cubes on like your character. You want to be using it on another character, maybe one where the weapon, the secondary, and emblem are still just epic with shitty lines, and if you roll it up to unique, it can maybe start killing some bosses a little bit faster, right? That's when that resource suddenly now has more value. And then if you kind of fall into the trap of using it on your main character because it's a valuable item, you might end up further away from the goal with the item, and then sometimes it might even be better just let a cube expire than to get baited into using it just because it's blinking.
Okay. I think, even though I understood like how a lot of the systems work, I just kind of like drowning in information, especially like looking at like the Shadow or Discord, and like everyone's talking about like cooldown minus cooldown potential on hats and stuff, and I'm thinking that's like something I need to worry about right this second, but it's probably not.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, it does. This change like the flow of your how you play your character. It's mainly useful for your trick blade, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when you're doing like the bossing, where you have to really rely on the survivability and iframes and stuff. So that's a bit further down the line. That's probably around the point where, all of your stuff is at least, like, you have got your drop and meso set completed. You've got your full Abzo set, full CRA set. The CRA set is probably all 17 and unique, maybe like 2-line unique. And the Abzo stuff is all 17 star, 2-line unique, okay flames. The glove is maybe legendary because the gloves can get critical damage in legendary. And then like maybe the hat at that point also goes to legendary for like cooldown reduction. But that's like around the time where that's all 17 and you're doing Helix every day. You're working on getting your Superior Golic set, Maybe you're working on Commercy accessories. Maybe you're doing more bosses and looking for the drops there. But yeah, that's a bit further in the progression.
Okay. Yeah, that is why I bought the gloves first, because I did see a lot of people talking just gloves being able to get crit damage, and that's kind of huge compared to anything else. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it comes more to, like, for a new player, a lot of times it's just like, I want to fill all of the equipment slots with an item, but it comes down way more to which piece synergizes with which other piece, and to which extent is your piece upgraded. That is way more important, rather than is there something in every single square, you know?
Right, yeah.
And that's something that you learn more, like, if you get your emblem to unique and you get some nice line, or you get it to legendary, you get like 2 lines of attack. The amount of total damage that you get from that versus getting like 6 other equips with like shitty lines and with a little bit of mini set bonus in there, it just doesn't even do as much as just one upgraded item at the right place at the right time. So it all comes down to just like allocating your time between helping your main versus helping your account, and versus making money, and then allocating your money at the right item at the right time. But the calculators will help you, and then the event calendar also tries to help you in telling you when the event is, so that you can, at that point, take all the money that you saved up and make it worth more by spending it at the right time, essentially.
Okay. I guess on that same note, just talking about that kind of stuff and filling slots, would you still recommend, like, after I spend some money on Shining, that I save up for the heart during this event?
Yes.
Okay, that is a big deal to get out of the way.
Yeah, there's usually only 2 or 3 of those a year as well, so it's worth it. It's going to take a while until you have like the money to tier it up and to roll it, but that's going to be before the end of the next. That's going to be, yeah, before the end of the next event. So it'll feel disproportionately expensive now, but like, yeah. So some of it is money is going to go to Shining and making some 16s, and then it's all going to be like potential weapon secondary and emblem, and then boss accessory. But that's all like 1 bill per equip kind of thing. So it's like 1 bill here, 1 bill here, 1 bill here, 1 bill here, and then 9 accessory pieces. So that's another 9 bill. But so then in total you're like, what? You're like 15 bill further, you know. And then you can start making that stuff. So
Okay.
yeah, Fairy Heart is 4 bill seems like a whole lot of money, but yeah, the speed with which you're making money is just accelerating very, very rapidly this early in the game. So
yeah, like I said, I even noticed that recently. Like, I just hit my first bill ever, like last week, and now I have 3 bills.
yeah.
and I've been spending some money, so it's not like I just held on to all that.
You're not hoarding? Oh, you're not doing it right, man. You gotta you gotta make sure you hodl everything. No, just kidding. No, so at the beginning as well, it's just like spending brings back so much more value immediately that you kind of just want to be spending all the time in the beginning. And then once you see like which upgrades are ahead of you and how much they're going to be, you'll start seeing that it makes more sense to just have a bunch of backups, and then just see, okay, where do I have the most backups, and then just send there for star forcing. And then if it goes, then you can commit more to the potential, then you can commit more to the flame. But if the star forcing doesn't go, then sometimes, the whole piece doesn't even come into play. Like, it doesn't even replace what you currently have. And then in that sense, it doesn't really make sense to commit to it yet if the star force isn't all there.
Okay. Was there anything else you had to note, or just...
Did you have any questions for the Matrix? Because I guess that's usually a little confusing for people early on. Understatement of the century, I guess.
No, I think because I messed it up on my fire poison and recognized that, I think I get it. At least I'm pretty sure I'm doing it right. Like, I'm... I don't know that I need all the skills that it gives me, but I just hold on to them and upgrade them in case there's something I need at some point. Like, I know...
Oh, yeah.
I've seen people use, like, Urda Shower and stuff.
Yeah, the decent door you can get rid of. That one is not necessary. And decent hyper body as well. Those you can just get rid of. Make sure that you lock the ones that you want to keep. You can right click them and then do lock. Because then if you ever want to disassemble, you can also click disassemble all, and it'll select all the ones that aren't locked. And then you can just get rid of them all faster if you open up a bunch of nodes. But for the first time, it's good to lock all of them. Is your current V matrix set up for the shadow? I think you have a little bit of overlap, right? You've got like a three of one kind. I think you don't have perfectly split 2-2-2. I don't think.
Yeah, I'm one trinode short of like my perfect setup, so I just have one in there that is providing something for one of the skills that I.
Oh, I see. This one is just level 1. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, keep your options open, right? The more you keep your options open in the beginning, the quicker you'll be done with your set 4. So what I mean by that is if you keep those 3 and you see those 3 leveled ones as these are ironclad and I just need the last one, that means that there's only 2 possible outcomes for the last one that are what you want, right? So ABC or ACB basically, right? Configurations.
Yeah.
So if you want to increase the chance of finding your 4 that you want, make sure you keep your gaze open as well for the nodes for the first 3, that they start with the same node, but that they have slightly different skills on the second and third line. If you find any that could be a tri-node for you, hold on to them for now, and maybe like lock them as well and don't level them up. Because what might happen is that you don't find this perfect 4th one, but you'll find 2 other ones that actually, if you switch 2 instead of that 1, maybe now it's correct as well. And then that can actually maybe save you more time.
Okay. Just like for the sake of like leveling them up eventually, I have like probably 40 or 50 tri-nodes. Just I know I don't have a picture of that, but I just have a ton of them sitting there. Like I don't really.
Oh, I see that. Yeah.
Disassemble.
You see I see little orbs here, right? So it opens up a new screen whenever you have a whole row.
Yeah, so I don't really disassemble unless it's like it starts with a skill that I will never use, like one of my
that's
job
good.
skills or.
Okay, yeah, no, that's good that you're keeping track of it that way. Yeah. Yeah, the other skill, rope lift, yeah, for the mobility. For some maps, people use it. Shower or fountain, right? You can place it with the down arrow key for a fountain somewhere. I don't generally use in like bigger maps, right? If you don't have the ability to go over the entire map yourself, but putting the shower in part of the map, the fountain, sorry, in part of the map will allow you to keep covering the map without being there. But it only does more damage as, or it does damage as you kill a certain amount of monsters. So like for bossing or something like that, it doesn't do anything because there's not enough monsters being killed. But door you can get rid of. The bind is very useful for bossing, right? I assume you've used that before.
Yeah, I swapped that in for bossing. I think the one you're looking at now is like my like modding setup. But
yeah, it makes sense.
I'll swap that with decent holy symbol for bossing.
Goddess Blessing is really nice, but yeah, once you level it up for more burst later, you just need a little bit more levels to get all your slots available, of course. And then yeah, the Shadow Walker. The Blink is useful for survivability. Have you done some Lucid before?
No, I've never done Lucid. No.
Well, Blink is a random teleport if you use it when you're standing on the ground, but if you're in the air and then you blink, then you will float for a while, and you can move around a little bit as well while you're holding down the key. So you can use that for certain situations, just to evade dangerous situations. Maybe Lotus, maybe the platform broke and there's a laser on the ground. If you dash up and then blink and stay in the air, you can stay in the air long enough, and then by the time the laser is gone, you'll land back on the ground. So it can be a little bit more useful, like that skill, and the goddess, not the goddess blessing, sorry, the Urda's will as well, just like your regular will skill. I don't know if you've been using that one at all. In your 4th job, you got like a cleansing skill.
Which one?
It's probably called Hero's Will for you.
Oh yeah.
So Hero's Will and Urda's Will, they do the same thing, but they basically just cleanse if you have bad crowd control on you, or if you use it preemptively, they can also prevent you from getting crowd controlled. So If in your stage you're looking at bosses like Chaos Papulatus, for example, if the clocks are mismatched over your head and you don't want to get sealed or stunned, if you use it preemptively, then you can block that, for example. It's one of those things, they're not exactly like iframes, but they can prevent you from dying. So the further you go in the game, the more they actually become useful. So it's a good idea to have them somewhere on the keyboard.
I need to learn to use that. I guess, like, in terms of, like, maybe the one thing I didn't fully understand, although when you explain that, I get what it does now, is, like, just, like, status resistance stuff was, like, I wasn't 100% sure how that worked, but, like, I get it now that you say that. And so I've, like, never used Hero's Will, but I probably should.
Yeah, it's just for work for stuns. Yeah, sometimes it work for stuns. Like if you're gonna get stuck and you're not a dark side class and you got like a little red thing is gonna land on your head or something like that. If you just use it preemptively, then you could just jump through things. You're trying to do gloom and you don't want to get sealed, blinded, or anything like that. You just use it preemptively and jump out of the way. You still take damage and everything, like you're not immune, but you just don't get crowd controlled. So, but these skills have long cooldowns, so you only use them once or twice a boss fight. Just phase pap before the timer runs down. Yeah, ideally, yeah, but if something weird happens or you don't want to get stunned, don't want to get locked, yeah. And I think you can also use it to immune getting grabbed by the claws. Like you just use that and then jump through it, because that would also be a hard CC, I think.
The claws on Pap?
Yeah, Papulatus, yeah.
Yeah, I have not tried the highest difficulty on that yet. I'm kind of like I watched your video and I'm kind of mentally prepared for it.
Yeah, you gotta be trick blading across the map using that iframe.
Yeah. That's kind of my next step, I think, is CPAP, and then I'm slowly building up to Helix. Like I've been trying it,
and Akechi,
failing
right?
with my. Well, I've been trying Galix with only killing one thing before the head. But unfortunately, I just get one shot at that, and I haven't gotten it yet. So.
Yeah, those attacks, they don't fuck around.
Honestly, Shadower kind of has it easy with some of that, because I can just like teleport behind the head constantly.
Yeah, like with HMAG, right? You got Darkside and you've got, Knockdown and Assassinate. So if you time that well, you've got some good counters in your kit for bosses around your level, which is nice.
Yeah. So, I think I just. Do you have a video on Galix mechanics? I think I just need to watch a video or something, because
I don't have one on Galix, no.
Okay, because there's just something after the chin is down that I just don't understand that's killing me, and I'm not sure what it is.
You getting like reversed?
Confused. Yeah, I get reversed, and that kind of like messes me up. But I also just like end up dying.
Yeah. So, yeah, well that's the same skill. So basically, what happens, like his eyes light up, and then if you're close to him, so the key to this is just not getting too close. So like if you're standing on that first platform, where the eyes are, there's a teleporter to his left. And you want to stay a little bit to the left of that. If you're on the right on the teleporter or a little bit to the right, then you're within his range for his attack. So basically, it's just his eyes light up, and there's like a little bit of an orange smoke. And then if you have the animations on, you'll have some like orange fiery, things like animation on top of your character. But that inverts you, and that puts a bomb on you, and basically that'll just blow up at like a random duration, and then it deals like 99% damage to you. So that's like the same thing that kills you. So the key is to stand further away from Galix. And one thing you can do, as long as you don't have any purple D stacks or debuff stacks from like the potatoes reaching the middle of Galix, what you can always do is also leave the portal on the left side and just kind of like stand outside there and just wait for your cooldowns to come back. But if you have the inversion thing on you with the bomb and you can leave the map, then that gets cleansed off as well.
Okay.
But yeah, it comes down to really keeping an eye on the HP bar of the Chin, and then making sure that you don't trigger him into the next phase unless you also have an escape plan to get far enough away so that you can dodge that bomb attack, essentially. So in the beginning, when you're short on damage, what you can do is, you get like one big burst, and you make sure you don't kill the Chin, and you just leave the map. And you can just wait for your entire burst to come back, and then you walk back in, finish him off, immediately get into phase 2, dodge that first bomb attack, and then just basically nuke him. If the hand comes up, you can either go down underneath it, or you can go up over it, or left, right. Just don't stay standing exactly where you are. I like going down and then killing the potatoes in the longer boss fight, and then once the hand is gone, you can go back up. But if it's a pretty short boss fight, then just like up jumping over the hand and then just landing and then continue attacking it is safer. Try to get like so I try to stand on the top left, and then I usually put a summon on the bottom right so that kills the potatoes, and then whenever the hand comes, I can just kill the potato directly under me, and then that way I don't get any of the debuff stacks, because if you get 5 debuff stacks, the purple ones, then you die as well.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some class diff, some classes have like iframes so they can kind of cheat it. Some people can, like Kanas can just stand right on top and kind of take those hits because they can just cleanse with Foxfire. They can just cleanse that bomb debuff. They just don't get it, so they have a little bit easier that way. So certain classes do things in certain different ways. Maybe the class Discord has a little bit of advice for Shadowers on Helix as well. I feel like Helix is so class specific. That's why I also don't really have the guide video for it, because for some classes, I have been thinking more though about like a comprehensive Helix guide in terms of like, for if you're this class, try to do this. If you're this class, try to do that. Like more specifically, because usually I try to just make guides for certain content, but boss fight of Helix is just so annoying, and it's also like getting better at Helix doesn't really help you in the game other than because of the drops it gives. It doesn't give you like extra insight to other boss fights on now you can do this so much better. It's just annoying. So it'd be one of those things where I can be swayed to just make a more in-depth guide for it just so that people can get in and get out faster.
Right. Yeah, and even as you were saying some things like, yeah, there's just like the potatoes can be like kind of hard for me to deal with just because like moving around a ton is a little cooldown dependent for me. Like just getting down and back up because like and like hitting them, but also like there's like I said, it's hard since I only can try it once a day, so I kind of learn a little bit every time.
Yeah.
But like some of my abilities interact weird with him. Like on the chin part, my like teleport behind him is really useful, but then on the eyes, it has a weird interaction where it'll take me from the middle platform down to the bottom of his face when I use it. So I don't know, it's kind of weird. So I'm just like,
exactly. You learn that by being like, oh, I did this, and and it's shit here. Okay, so it's not reliable now. Yeah, you have to just kind of take a note and trial and error. Used to be more entries, but yeah, sadly there's no practice mode or anything like that.
okay.
Project Helix speedrun before Wonky removes it. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you think Helix on the way out?
Okay, I guess I don't remember when we started. I don't know how we're doing on time, but maybe
yeah, we're about 132 in, so.
Okay. So if it's okay, I maybe just had like a couple specific questions.
Yeah, sure.
Just to help me understand some things better. I know we were talking about meso and drop gear and stuff, but I was wondering, is that something that's like really important for me to focus on for inner ability too?
Yeah, so typically I advise most people to make like a mobbing inner ability early on and then switch it into a bossing inner ability, usually around once you really start doing those higher level bosses like around level 260, 265. And that's around the time also that gives you enough time to build up a lot of honor EXP, gives you the time to have more meso available freely whenever an event comes around so that you can just dump some into circulators. And in general, that also means that the most value from your mobbing ability has kind of run its course, and that your income is then just way more reliant percentage-wise on bossing mules and selling the crystals thereof, rather than just the extra mesos that the ability can give you when you're training or when you're grinding. So that switch from like a mobbing to bossing ability is probably I would say it's like at least 2 million honor. So anywhere from like 1.5 to 2.5 probably is like a good idea to get to that point before you really want to make that switch. Up until that point, it's really a matter of, does your class like hardcore rely on like one specific ability? Like some classes just really want attack speed +1. Some classes need buff duration, you know? Those take precedent, but if it's not that, any kind of combination of drop rate or meso obtain, or maybe crit rate, you know, if you hit like anything like that, is like a great combination. So typically either like top line meso obtain and then like an epic drop rate line, or the other way around. You know, ideally you want the meso, but getting extra drop rate, like extra node stones, that's also not a bad thing at all. So for now, it mostly would be, I would probably just probably after the drop rate meso gear is done, probably circulate for, because you don't need any. You're one of the classes that doesn't really 100% hardcore need something. But I probably just keep rolling the circulators for 20% meso. If there's 50% off, you can lock the meso, and then see if you can hit, you know, like 8, 9, 10% drop epic line, and then just hold on to that essentially until you have like 2 mil plus honor, and then you can go into a bossing 1.
Okay. Yeah, I think part of me was kind of like grasping onto the fact that Shadower gets extra meso, and I'm like, oh, I don't need it. But definitely for drop rate too, I've noticed, like, because I had a unique ability that had drop rate and meso, but like it wasn't great like numbers for it. But I held on to it for a while, and after I rolled out of that, I realized like I like don't get node stones anymore, and I still need those. So
yeah, so you have like a hidden 100% drop rate, that's like your base, but your bonus drop rate here at least says 15%. So if you're going from 100 to 115, that's a significant increase. If you went to 130, that's, you know, if you had a 15% drop rate, I don't know how much you had, but then that's a significant amount of how much you have. If your total drop rate is at, you know, I don't know, like 400%, and the base 100%, so like at 500% effective, and then you lose somewhere 5%, then that's not that big of a deal. You're not going to notice that. But it's just like that as well when it comes to how much damage you have on your character, and, you know, how much IED you have and all of that. Like if you have a certain amount of a stat, if you have 800% damage and you lose 1% damage, you're not going to notice that. But if you have only 1% damage and you lose 1% damage, well, now you lose all of your damage, right? So in the game, they tried to work harder on making clear when it's percentages, when it's percentage points, when it's additive, when it's multiplicative. But for a bunch of stuff, you just have to kind of know, and, you know, you'll just kind of like find out, or okay, that maybe wasn't great. The thing with Honor EXP is that I think new players get baited pretty hard, because you get quite a lot of Honor EXP early on your first character. Well, on every character you do, just because of leveling. But then when the leveling stops and it, you know, eventually it or slows down significantly, you don't build up all of that Honor EXP anymore that you got that first time. But you only realize that after you spent it the first time, like, oh, actually Honor EXP is a lot slower now. So
yeah,
it would be cool if that was kind of given upfront in terms of like, hey, this is Honor XP. You get some extra now because you're just starting out, but beware, you know, it's not gonna replenish as quickly. But yeah, most people only learn that after they splurge on their first Honor EXP, because they're like, oh, I have so much, and they're like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe you should have saved. Yeah.
All right, so I can just kind of like freely roll that until or no, you said use circulators for meso.
Yeah, because you're basically buying Honor EXP with meso, right? And with circulators, you can always pick the new roll or the old one. So always set a budget. Be like, okay, I'm going to spend 5, I'm going to spend 10, I'm going to spend 15 bill, whatever your budget is, or 1 bill, you know? And then just spend until that budget, and if you don't get what you want, that cool, then move on. If you do get what you want, then you can commit to it. So typically I just wait until there's a 30% off, 50% off durability, and then on that day usually I set a budget for circulator, and then just try. If it hits, then lock that in and roll with the honor. And if it doesn't hit, then save your honor for next time.
Okay. One of my other questions I feel like is maybe a little too involved, and I need to look more into it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't include pictures of any familiars because until after I sent those, I didn't have anything even remotely worth anything. And then I think that same day, like later that day, I got uh, a 15% IED
Mm-hmm.
familiar. But honestly, I'm assuming that's just kind of a thing that you just keep grinding away at getting familiars until you get something good.
Yeah, I have a familiar command that basically you got like all the data there when it comes to transferring, like what all the stats are, fusion, all the different tiers, like how the defense system, all of that stuff, and then basically just all the flat data. And then on the bottom, there's basically just like advice on what potentials are you looking for, what tiers are familiars are you going to be looking for, and then anything that's mentioned there, if it says like, oh, you tier up a familiar to epic, and you're like, well, how do I do that? Then you could just basically just scroll up and be like, okay, tiering up, how does that go? How many do you need to fuse? How many? Because in the beginning you get a lot of familiars from a lot of different areas, so you can't really use them for anything functional. So you can reveal their potential. If it's good, you can use it. Basically any kind of drop rate or any kind of IED early on, that's basically the only stuff you're looking for. And if it's not good, then you can extract them, and then you can get points for that. You can use the points for energy in case the summon gauge runs out, or you can use it for a booster pack if you have a lot of points. Booster pack gives you 3 random familiars. There's a decent chance for an epic in there, and epic is that's a nice higher tier. You can't find those in the wild. There's only some exceptional familiars that can drop higher tier. That's like from specific bosses, like 2 bosses in the game or something, really, really low rates. So, and there's a decent chance also from rare familiars in the booster packs, and the rare familiars will help you with your sets, basically. I don't know if you've ever gotten a set completed.
I completed one like yesterday.
Like the badges, yeah. So that now you have
I think it
access
was
to 2
the
familiars, right?
Yeah, it was like the S-Fair set or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh yeah, that one's
Yeah.
pretty. Yeah, that one's pretty easy. So once you have, so you can, if you're building up bossing mules, you can also kind of put your familiars towards those bossing mules to get the 15% ID there as well. That's really good value early on for your characters. And then once you get into an area where the familiars drop from the monsters you're actively training in, then you can really start getting a lot of the same familiar, and that's when you can start thinking about tiering up onto epic, because then you need to fuse them on top of each other. So basically you just go here, boom, boom, and then in collection you can see your familiars. And you see here I have a bunch of the same, so if I wanted to, I could go to fusion, and then click one, and oh well, I have them all locked so I don't accidentally fuse them, right? Same thing like with your nodes. But if I were to unlock this one, for example, and then I went to fusion and clicked one of these, then I can see the other one here. So if I wanted to, I could fuse it in, and then it would give me, it says here, like it would give me 3 points, and out of 150. So if I get to 150, it's all the way full. And then on this card as well, the little crystal that you see on the left side will be all the way on the right side, and the bar will be all the way yellow. And then I would also have to level it up. So you see now it's level 1. So if I summon it here in my setup, and then have it summoned while I kill monsters near my level, then it'll also gain EXP. So it'll have to be max level and max fusion. And then the button for rank up will be pushable. Let me lock this one back before I forget. For fusion, then basically this fuse button will be... that's for the familiars. And then rank up will be clickable. And there's like 80% chance from rare to epic, and 40% chance from epic to unique. So that's, and then you just get the reveal, just like potential on an item, and then you get to be disappointed at the horrible roll you just got, essentially. But that's what you do to try to get a large drop rate. That's what you want to get. That's up to 100%. So that's basically, once you get that one, then you've got everything you need basically out of epic, and they can keep going for, then you can go for unique cards. You can still get epic potentials that are nice. Like you can get boss percentage and higher IED percentage, but they're so rare and epic that we just make uniques instead. But don't forget to go over. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll look more into that. That's just kind of like on top of every system. That was just kind of my like the last system I was worried about. So I haven't really looked into that one yet, just because I knew it was gonna take some time before I even needed to bother. Just because I wasn't gonna. It's gonna take a while to even get a line that was good.
Yeah, for sure. You're just like the mass revealing in the beginning and just kind of like extracting all the shitty ones. Yeah, all the details are here. So like, if you want to get more badges to get your third slot, for example, this has a little picture where you can see like which badges are easy to get and which ones are harder to get. Just to make sure that you're not, because some cards are maybe just not available in the game at all or only from booster packs. So if you're like committing to a set because you think you can get everything and it's like, oh, I only need one more, and it's like, oh, this one takes so much time that I should have just not gone for this set at all, kind of to avoid that whole thing.
Okay.
This document talks about drop rate and how it stacks with the familiar lines, so that's also pretty useful. And this is more about the cost of the familiars. If you're looking for a specific potential, sometimes people are like, oh, I want 40 boss. But there's like the numbers are out there on how many familiars you would have to actually get to realistically get that, so that you can have have the data to back up your plans.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look more into that system. I guess the last thing I just wondered, because I got like 2 back-to-back 15% IED ones.
Mm-hmm.
Do those stack now that I can have 2 of them? And is it even worth stacking those?
Yeah, so boss damage and IED individually, they do stack, but as individual sources, right? So it's like one source of 15% and another source of 15, not like one clumped source of 30%.
Okay, yeah.
They can each work up until 120% total. So there's, sky is the limit on those things. If you see and the way you can see this, if you have them both selected and you're in your overview screen, you can see on the right side, you can see what is being applied. So you can see your badge effects here from what you've equipped, which is probably just one. If you haven't equipped it, you can do that here at the badge screen. If you just click the badge, it'll equip it, and then you get the passive. But it'll be like 5 HP or some dumb shit, right?
Okay.
But above here, you can see the stats of the familiars, and basically, if it's in white, it applies. If it for some reason wouldn't apply because it hits some kind of cap or something, it'll be in red.
All right.
Same thing here for the badges. So I have some badges that will give a stat that I can't stack, and then you see it in red here. So now it won't apply anymore.
Okay.
So that helps you kind of like determine what is the best set that you want to be applying. So same thing with the familiars. That's how you can know like which lines of drop and meso and stuff are being applied or not. If you summon familiars and they have a buff that they need to give you, then they show up here. So right now, only one buff from one of the familiars is actually doing something for me, and I can immediately check and know which one that is. So as long as they give a physical buff up here, then there is like stacking interaction and stuff that they have to take care of. But as long as it's some kind of buff they give you and it doesn't show up as a buff here physically, but it just increases your stats, then it just stacks infinitely. So that's for IED up to a certain amount, right? Boss up to a certain amount. But also for healing, for example. Healing doesn't show up as a buff here, so if you have 2 lines of healing on one familiar and all 3 of them, you can get up to 6 lines of healing for your party.
Okay. All right, and then I guess just as a really specific parting question, because I know we're running late, and really specific question, but like given like the equipment that I have and stuff, since I've been working on Commercy, what should I go for first with that?
Usually the first go-to item would be a tattoo, because the only alternative, like next alternative you could have would be a Twilight Mark which has a very low chance from normal Lucid and normal Will, but then usually from hard Lucid and hard Will can start dropping. The only other 2 pieces that we sometimes use would be the monocle and the pendant, but the pendant is very expensive, and you probably want to go for different pendants first. And the monocle, is more easy to replace with the Black Bean mark, which drops at a pretty decent rate from normal Black Bean. Well, it can drop from normal, but it drops at a pretty decent rate from Chaos Pink Bean. So,
Okay.
yeah, typically that's a little bit further down the line. So the tattoo is by far from the 3 like the earliest one that you would replace to.
Okay, yeah, and I can probably afford that in just a couple more days too. So cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And yeah, I guess it's still a lot in the beginning, so try to. It's hard to parse out like how much of that information do I need right now and how much, but with how quickly you progress, sometimes you're like, oh, I don't need that at all, and then like 3 days later, you're like, oh, now it's suddenly relevant already. It's
Right, and
hard to
and
tell.
that's why I wanted to cover a lot of bases, but I also know that like my immediate plans are just the shining, getting the fairy heart, and then doing like some potentials on some of the gear I'm gonna keep, and cleaning out my inventory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the secondary and the emblem will start helping you a lot in terms of damage increase, especially once you get to legendary. The thing is just like don't get to once you get to unique, you have to roll with quote unquote like unique cubes, right? So then it just becomes prohibitively way more expensive than the mystical cubes you can roll in epic. So once everything is in epic, has like 6% of your stat at least, then you can start looking at tiering all the other stuff up, and then it's mainly just weapon secondary emblem, like the real weapon, right? And this emblem and the shield secondary, and then once those are good, drop a meso gear, and then you'll just start seeing, and especially with the inner-ability there, you start seeing that you start making way more money when you're training, and you can fund your own character better. You'll be doing more bosses more easily. Make sure you keep an eye on the IED as well, because the bosses that you're going to start doing now have more and more defense. And if your ID is a little bit low, then the total amount of investment you need to make on your character is going to be just increased by so much, just because your ID stat is a little bit on the lower side. So make sure you check with the progression grid, right? That you try to like approach the numbers here for your functional IED, because I saw right now you're at like in the 80s, but that's a huge difference. So like the monsters having 300% armor, if you only have 80% ID, then you lose 60% of your final damage. But if you have 90%, then you only lose 30% of your final damage. So instead of doing 40% of your damage, you're doing 70% of your damage. So you're doing almost double your damage with just a little bit more IED. So it's good to look into that.
Okay, yeah, some of that is there's some links I want to level up, but unfortunately I leveled some characters to like I don't know, like the 180s, and then took a break for a while, and now I don't know how to play them, and playing
Yeah.
them at that level without knowing what they do is pretty difficult. So like
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get my arc is like 189. I wanted to get it to 200 so I could start using coupons on it. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot stand training the arc.
Well, yeah, this goes into a little bit for like the extreme growth potions and the bonking essentially. Um, the phenomenon that we've basically dubbed marooning your characters. Like going up leveling with bonking and everything is all well and dandy, but you have to remember that once you start bonking at 140, you essentially just have a level 140 that is now trying to fight level 190 monsters, because all you're really getting is a little bit more base stat, but you're not, you haven't played the character, so you haven't developed like hands for the character, you have not upgraded your equips at all. So yeah, it's really hard to go back from especially at 190 or 189 to just start training when you have equips on that you had at level 100, right? Until level 140 doing Zakum. So it's really unrealistic to expect. So it's gonna come with some financial investment, or some other kind of potions to drag it up to 200 first.
All right. Well, thanks for all your help.
Mm-hmm. You're very welcome. And yeah, thanks for taking the advice, I guess. But most of all, I hope everything gets to 16 really quickly on Sunday, so that you can keep as much money as possible to work on those potentials, and then start making some sick gains in damage, and then drop in meso after that.
Yeah, awesome. All right.
All right. Well, I'll see you around, and yeah, you know where to ask if you have anything, if you have anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. The knowledge gains from you and chat over the past like 2 weeks alone have been crazy. So
All right. Well, you're very welcome, and you got lucky
have a good one.
winning the giveaway, so you got the extra knowledge immediately. But yeah, have a good one, and I'll see you around.
See you.
All right, bye. All right, so that was another one of the giveaways, giveaway sessions. If you guys want to win one as well, make sure you leave a comment on the YouTube video saying you'd like to win with your Discord name. So that was a new member to the stream who has been here for 2 weeks now, who got lucky and won, and immediately is getting a huge blessed start in this insanely complicated game. It's not like the most complicated game in the world, but there's a lot of little and big mistakes that you could make because there's just so much going on. It's 20 years old, bunch of systems, still constantly changing, right? Even though I have all the commands, I have all the information, stuff is still changing at roughly every 3 months and big changes every 6 months. So yeah, it's a constant struggle and a constant work to keep everything up to date, but we like to do it here. So yeah, if you are just starting out with the game, or you're returning, or you've already been playing for a long time and you're just looking for people that hang out with, ask some questions here and there, and just chill, I stream every day over at twitch.tv/Scardor, wherever it is there, that way. And yeah, so during the sessions like this, you could be in the chat and just abusing the person or just helping like most people usually are. Don't do the abuse part, that was a joke. And yeah, we just hang out, chill, talk about Maple stuff, talk about anything you want to talk about. These sessions there are paid sessions, there are these giveaway sessions that you could be lucky if you leave your comment, and there are also sessions that you can get with the channel points from watching the stream that you get passively, and that is available to everyone who's subscribed over at Twitch, which, if you have Prime, could be free as well. So come on down, check out the stream sometime. If not, check out the next video. Either way, thanks for watching, and I'll see you around. Bye. Oh, look, there's another session that just got requested. You see that? Boom. Another one. All right, peace.